I'm Robert Kenchington. This year sees the publication of one of the most important thrillers ever written, Worst Nightmares by Shane Bryant, whom it gives me special pleasure to interview today. Welcome, Shane.
Hi, Robert.
What is the premise of Worst Nightmares, and what was the inspiration behind the story?
The premise of Worst Nightmares is basically how far will we go to protect the ones we love and to protect our own reputation, and to, if we've made one small mistake, how far will we ultimately go to protect that small mistake and to cover up the truth. I've been fascinated by the fact that people will share with perfect strangers on the internet things that they would not share with people that they meet in day-to-day life. And yet they have no idea really what sort of person is the other end of the computer. Sometimes you make a Skype call and you can see them, you can speak to them, you can iChat them. But in many cases, especially young people, they're emailing and typing in messages to someone they think is their own age, and in fact is not, some ghastly predator.
Worst Nightmares is highly original in terms of plot, structure and characterization. But what kind of preparation has gone into the development of the story in the first place?
That's interesting. I tend to be a writer that starts writing not exactly knowing how the end will pan out. I like to explore the characters and as I go along, I begin to understand what they're like. And so in terms of Worst Nightmares, I was greatly intrigued all the way through to put obstacles in the way of our hero and see how he'd deal with them and how that would carry the plot forward. I thought that was interesting.
Yes.
I've read a lot, and I've done a lot of research into criminal behavior, and I've talked to a lot of psychiatrists, so that everything that happens is completely plausible. I was reading a book just yesterday, and I came to a stage where I said, I just don't think this would happen. I don't think he'd do that. It became implausible, and so to that extent, it lost me.
The central character in Worst Nightmares is the author Dermot Nolan, who seems to have all the usual creative hang-ups one associates with authors. Tell me more about him.
I think with all my books, I don't know about other people, with my books I try and inject a certain part of my psyche, some of my attributes into the central character, sometimes into in the sequel to Worst Nightmares. I know that I've thought about the darker side of my nature and tried to work that into the character who's the bad guy. So to some extent, I do empathize very much with Dermot Nolan. And when I put obstacles in his way, I'm always thinking, well, what would I do? Because I don't think that I'm a particularly reprehensible person, and yet there have been many times when I've been forced to make a white lie or just to lie straight out. You know, I couldn't get there with the homework is late because a dog ate it or whatever it is. So to a large extent, I am Dermot Nolan, and we will see in the sequel how far he does go and how far I'd go, I suppose.
I think many readers would be fascinated to learn more about your character of the Dream Healer. Tell me more about him.
The Dream Healer. Yes, I can't tell you too much in case I give some of the story away, but basically the Dream Healer is someone who is a serial killer who targets his victims on the internet by masquerading as someone who's going to help them with their nightmares and allow them to sleep and to have a good night's rest rather than go to sleep and have terrible dreams. I know I dream a lot, And quite often I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm not exactly terrified, but I'm very distressed by what I've been dreaming about. And yet at the same time, the strange thing is that I want to go back and continue in that nightmare world to explore it further, rather than expunge the whole thing, go to sleep, and have no more dreamings. But the dream healer, he preys on innocent people, and he preys on people that go on the internet and speak to total strangers and tell them of their darkest and deepest fears and psychoses, hoping that they'll get some sort of instant relief. And of course, what happens is the dream healer, when he finds someone who he thinks is particularly interesting, he tracks them down and kidnaps them and makes their worst nightmares come true, only 100 times more intensely painful and horrible.
What challenges did you face when you were preparing Worst Nightmares? And moreover, how did you overcome them?
I wouldn't really say that I had any real challenges. I think the major challenge was to make certain that it was plausible and that people would do in real life what I was suggesting they would do in my novel. And I know when I was writing it, and I gave it to Wendy, my wife, to read, and a lot of people were concerned that the bad guy had done the things that he'd done because of a series of events which had scarred his nature. I would think that if that had happened to me, I would go completely loopy and probably get towards doing what he did. I don't think I would, because I think my genes they're not quite as extreme as his. But there are people out there, and the history of crime since ever has been, there have been people out there who've done the most appalling things without any compassion whatsoever. And when asked why they did them, their answer has been, because I felt like doing it. Or else, as in the case with another of my books, Hit Kids, there doesn't have to be a reason. I just do it. I enjoy doing it. So as long as I feel it's plausible, then I suppose it's up to the reader to decide whether they think it's plausible too.